"Don't come to the family cabin this weekend," she said, smoothing her hair in the hallway mirror as she slipped on her coat. "Ethan thinks it would be better if it's just a smaller group this time." I was pulling my weekend bag from the closet, already packed with the new hiking boots I'd bought for the trails up there. I stopped and looked at her. "Ethan thinks? Since when does your old college friend decide who comes to our family cabin?" She didn't turn around, just adjusted her scarf. "It's not like that, Alex. He's been helping me plan the whole retreat. Yoga in the mornings, wine around the fire at night. He says the energy shifts when you're there. You get quiet, you check your phone for work emails, and it brings everyone down." I set the bag down slowly. "The cabin that my grandfather built, that I maintain every summer, that I pay the property taxes on so we can keep using it?" She finally met my eyes in the mirror's reflection. "God, here you go with the money thing again. It's always about what you pay for." Ethan says that's exactly the vibe: possessive, controlling. This weekend is supposed to be about healing and connection, and honestly, you weigh it down. I felt something inside me settle into a cold, still place. "Okay," I said. "I won't come." She paused, lipstick halfway to her mouth. "Wait, really? You're not going to fight me on this?" "No point," I said. "You and Ethan clearly have it all figured out." She gave a small, relieved smile. "Thank you for understanding. I'll be back Sunday night. Love you." She kissed the air near my cheek and was gone. The moment the door closed, I didn't sit on the couch and stew. I opened my laptop instead. For 5 years, I'd been the steady one for Claire. When she decided to leave her stable teaching job to become a full-time wellness coach, I took on extra freelance coding contracts to cover our mortgage while her business grew from nothing. When she wanted to travel to Bali for a month-long yoga teacher training, I used my vacation days to watch her dog and water her plants. I fixed the leaky roof on the cabin, replaced the dock boards, paid for the new septic system. I never complained. I thought if I handled the practical side, she'd have space to build the life she kept talking about: freedom, flow, authenticity. But somewhere along the way, I became the obstacle to that life. Ethan entered the picture 6 months earlier. He was one of those perpetual workshop facilitators: sound baths 1 month, cacao ceremonies the next. He had long hair tied back with a leather cord, wore linen everything, and spoke in slow, meaningful sentences that made people lean in. Claire met him at a retreat in Joshua Tree, and suddenly he was her soul brother. They started co-hosting events. He stayed on our couch between leases. He drank my good whiskey and told me, with gentle pity in his eyes, that I was living in my head instead of my heart that I tried at first. I went to one of their breathwork circles. I sat in a room full of strangers hyperventilating while Ethan walked around adjusting people's shoulders and whispering affirmations. Claire kept glancing at me, worried I'd ruin the container. I left early, quietly, and never went back. After that, the comparison started. If I mentioned a new client project that paid well, she'd talk about how Ethan helped her raise her rates by aligning her energy. If I suggested we spend a quiet weekend at home, she'd say Ethan thought I was blocking her expansion. She stopped asking me to come to her events. She started quoting him constantly. "Ethan says," became the preface to every criticism of me. I watched it happen gradually, the way you watch paint peel. I kept thinking if I just gave her more space, more support, she'd come back to us. But space became distance, and support became invisibility. So when she told me not to come to the cabin, our cabin, because Ethan didn't like my energy, something clicked into place. That I spent that Friday evening not packing for the trip, but unpacking my life from hers. That I opened a new bank account and transferred my half of the savings. I forwarded the mortgage statements to my personal email. I called a realtor friend and asked about listing my city condo quietly. I booked a small furnished loft downtown starting the following month. I made lists the way I always do when solving a complex system. Assets, liabilities, dependencies, exit points. Saturday morning, while she was probably leading sunrise yoga on the deck my grandfather and I rebuilt together, I hired a discreet moving company that specializes in same-day relocations. They arrived at noon. I had already color-coded everything. Green stickers for what was undeniably mine, red for shared items I was willing to leave, blue for things I wanted duplicated or replaced later. The crew worked fast. Bookshelves emptied. My office chair rolled out. My clothes vanished from the closet. The kitchen lost my cast iron pans, my coffee setup, the good knives. I left her stand mixer, her essential oil diffuser, her crystal collection untouched by 6 that evening. The condo looked like only one person had ever lived there. Half the art was gone from the walls. My side of the bathroom counter was bare. The second bedroom, my office, was stripped to echoes that I took one last walk through, carrying only a small duffel with essentials. The place smelled faintly of her lavender candles. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and left my key under the mat for the On.My new loft was on the 23rd floor. All glass and clean lines. The city spread out below like a circuit board at night. I poured myself a drink from the bottle I'd brought and sat on the empty floor, waiting. The call started at 1:47 a.m. Sunday. First missed, then 3 in a row. Texts poured in. Claire, where are you? The condo is dark. Claire, Alex? Your office is empty. What is happening? Claire, your clothes are gone. The bookshelves. Answer me. Claire, I just got home early because the energy felt off without you in this. Call me now. I waited until the 6th call before picking up. Alex. Her voice was high, trembling. What did you do? Everything is gone. Your desk, your monitors, your side of the bed is stripped. It looks like you died. It's not death, Claire, I said quietly. It's departure. Departure? You're scaring me. Ethan is here. He drove me back when I started panicking. We're standing in the living room and it's half empty. Tell Ethan the energy should be much lighter now. This isn't funny. You can't just vanish because I asked you to skip one weekend. You didn't ask, Claire. You told me my presence was unwelcome. You quoted Ethan chapter and verse about how I bring everyone down. So I solved the problem at the root. Come home. We'll talk. I'll make tea. We'll sit on the balcony like we used to. There is no home to come back to for me. I have a new place. The mortgage is in both our names, but I've already spoken to the bank about options. You'll get paperwork this week. She started crying then, loud gulping sobs. You can't do this. 5 years, Alex. 5 years and you're throwing it away over one stupid weekend. I didn't throw anything away. You spent months telling me I was the problem, the controlling energy, the practical mind that killed the vibe. I'm simply honoring your truth. Ethan says this is emotional manipulation. That you're punishing me. Ethan isn't part of this conversation anymore. And neither am I. Wait. Alex, please. I hung up and blocked her number. The fallout came in waves. First, her sister called 2 days later. She's devastated. She's sleeping on a friend's couch because she can't stand being in the condo alone. You need to at least help her financially until she gets on her feet. Her business has been growing, I said. She raised her rates, remember? With Ethan's help aligning her energy. She's behind on bills. The retreat income isn't steady. Then perhaps she should align her budget. Her mother called next, voice tight with disapproval. This is beneath you, Alexander. Walking out without a word. Leaving her to face everything alone. You were supposed to be the responsible one. I was responsible for far too long. Now I'm responsible for myself. Friends texted cautiously. Some took her side, some stayed neutral. A few told me privately that Ethan had bailed the moment money got tight. He had a calling in Costa Rica and couldn't be tied down by low-vibe drama. Claire tried emailing my work address. Long, rambling apologies mixed with accusations. She was sorry she hurt me. She saw now that Ethan had been manipulative. She missed the safety I provided. Could I please just loan her enough for the next mortgage payment? She promised to pay it back once her new online course launched. I never replied. 3 months later. I was thriving in ways I hadn't expected. The loft filled slowly with furniture I actually liked. I took up rock climbing on weekends. My freelance contracts turned into a full partnership offer at a new firm. I slept better than I had in years. Claire's world, meanwhile, contracted. Her retreats lost attendees when word spread about the drama. The condo went into foreclosure proceedings after missed payments. She moved back in with her parents upstate. 9 months after that night, I was at an industry conference downtown, accepting an award for a system architecture project that had saved a major client millions. I was in the ballroom, shaking hands, when I saw her across the room. She was working the event. Catering uniform, hair pulled back severely, carrying a tray of champagne flutes. The dress under the apron was plain black, nothing like the flowing linen she used to favor. She looked tired in a bone-deep way. Our eyes met. She handed her tray to another server and approached. Alex. Her voice was small. I saw your name on the program. Congratulations. Thank you. You look good. Really good. I nodded. I tried to reach you so many times. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, I know. Ethan, he ghosted everyone when things got hard. I'm working 2 jobs now. Living with my parents. I lost the condo. I heard. Can we talk somewhere? Just 5 minutes. We're talking now. She twisted her hands together. I was wrong about everything. You were my anchor. I didn't see it until you were gone. I miss you every day. I don't miss being told I was heavy energy. That was him talking through me. I was stupid. I thought freedom meant no structure, no responsibility. But without you, everything fell apart. Freedom has costs, I said. You wanted to pay them. I simply stopped subsidizing the bill. Tears welled in her eyes. So that's it? 5 years and you can just turn it off. I didn't turn anything off. You spent months dimming me until I finally stepped out of your light. I just kept walking. You're happy without me? I'm peaceful. There's a difference. She searched my face for any crack, any softness. There was none. I hate what I've become, she whispered. That's between you and your mirror now. The announcer called my name again. Time for photos. I stepped around her. Good luck, Claire. I walked away without looking back. Up on stage, under bright lights, holding the Crystal Award, I felt the silence inside me. Clean, vast, undisturbed. And for the first time in years, it felt like home.